I learned to stop hoping the year my husband died. Hope, I'd discovered, was a luxury women like me couldn't afford. James passed in April. Fever took him in 3 days, fast enough that I didn't have time to prepare, slow enough that I watched him slip away one breath at a time. The preacher said lovely things at the funeral. The town women brought casseroles and sympathy. Neither paid the bills. By September, I was counting coins at my kitchen table the way other women counted blessings. 15 cents for mending Mrs. Henderson's shirt. 20 cents for the preserves I'd sold at the general store. I did the arithmetic in my head constantly now. A grim little song that played while I worked. 6 weeks. That's what I had left before I'd need to sell James's tools. The last pieces of him I owned. I talked to myself in that empty house. The silence hurt worse than the loneliness. If that makes sense. You'll manage, I'd say out loud while washing my single plate, my single cup. You always do. Some days I believed it. Most days I just kept moving because stopping meant thinking, and thinking led nowhere good. The banker's son had made a suggestion in July. I could work at the saloon. He'd said, with a smile that made my skin crawl. I'd told him what I thought of his idea, using words my mother would have washed my mouth out for. He'd left quickly. I'd felt powerful for about an hour, then terrified for a week. I sat in James's chair. Sometimes I'd kept only one at the table after he died, because 2 felt like lying, and wondered when I'd started measuring life in coins instead of sunsets. James used to say I worried too much. I understood now he'd done the worrying for both of us. Without him, I carried it all. The geese flew south in early September. I watched them from my porch, coffee cooling in my hands, and counted the jars in my root cellar. Not enough. Never enough. I was rationing hope the same way I rationed flour, making it stretch, knowing it would run out. Being a widow meant more than being alone. It meant being judged, pitied, expected to disappear quietly into some relative's home or a rushed second marriage. The town meant well, I suppose, but good intentions don't buy firewood. I saw the notice for the Hendersons' barn raising tack to the church door that Sunday. Free meal if you helped work. My stomach made the decision before my pride could argue. I'd go. I'd carry boards until my hands blistered. I'd earn that meal. Some bargains you make with yourself. Some bargains make you... The Henderson place sat at the valley's edge, close enough to town that half the county showed up for the barn raising. I arrived early, before the sun burned off the morning mist, and set to work immediately. No point in small talk. I was there to work, to eat, to leave. I was carrying boards when I first saw him. He simply took the plank from my hands, didn't ask, didn't smile, just lifted it from my grip and walked it to where the men were framing. I stood there, annoyed and confused in equal measure. I was perfectly capable of carrying lumber. I'd been managing for months, but I watched him work after that. Couldn't help it. He was tall, built the way mountains are built, solid, permanent. His hands knew wood the way James's had known horses, with an intimacy that spoke of years, not just skill. He worked in silence, didn't laugh at the other men's jokes, didn't stop for water until the frame was up. When someone asked him a question, he answered with the minimum words necessary. Yes. No. That'll do, the women whispered during lunch. Been here 2 years now, Mrs. Henderson said, passing cornbread. Lives up on the mountain, keeps to himself. Running from something, probably. Her daughter added with the confidence of youth. Why else would a man hide up there? I thought, aren't we all running from something? He approached me while I was washing lunch dishes. I'd stayed to help clean up another hour, earned that meal more thoroughly. He stood a respectful distance away, didn't crowd my space. You need help with that fence before winter. His voice was quiet, direct. I bristled immediately. I manage. He nodded once. Didn't say you couldn't. Asked if you needed help. I scrubbed a plate harder than necessary. I don't take charity. Wasn't offering charity. Was offering help. There's a difference. He walked away before I could argue. I stood there with wet hands and a confused heart. Men didn't offer help for nothing. I'd learned that lesson well. I waited for him to name his price. The next morning, I found my fence repaired. The wood I'd been meaning to stack for 2 months sat neatly by my door, covered with canvas against rain. No demand. Just work. Done quietly in the dark. I stood in my doorway, coffee growing cold in my hand, not sure if I was grateful or angry. His eyes weren't kind. I remembered they were careful. I understood careful. I'd been careful every day since James died. But this felt different. Dangerous. Maybe. Because accepting help meant owing someone. And I'd sworn never to owe anyone again. I drank my cold coffee and watched the sun rise over my repaired fence. My hands were shaking. He came back 3 weeks later. I was digging in the garden, trying to get the last vegetables in before the frost. When I heard his footsteps, I knew they were his before I turned around. Something about the weight, the rhythm, careful, deliberate. What do you want? I asked, not standing up. Dirt under my nails, sweat on my back. No patience for games. Company, he said. Partnership. A wife. I did stand then. Looked at him direct. Excuse me, I have a cabin. Good land. Can provide. You need security. He met my eyes steady. It'd be practical. No poetry. No wildflowers like James had brought. No talk of love or future children. Just honesty. Plain as morning. I don't know you. You know I work hard. Keep my word. That's more than most know about the men they marry. He was right. I hated that he was right. I need to think. Fair enough. He turned to leave, then stopped. I'm not offering rescue. I'm offering partnership. You'd work. I'd work. We'd share the load. That's all. That's all. As if marriage was that simple. I took 3 days to decide. Made lists in my head like a ledger, pros and cons, assets and liabilities. James had proposed with wildflowers and dreams. This man offered survival. Maybe that was more honest. The pros roof, food, winter security, someone to share the work. The cons giving up independence, sharing space, sharing a bed. Risk of losing myself again. Risk of losing him. But I was already losing everything slowly. This was just a different kind of loss. Or maybe a different kind of gain. On the 3rd day. I found him after Sunday service. Yes, I said. Just that. He nodded once, satisfied. Like I'd confirmed something he already knew. We married the following Thursday. Me in my worn blue dress, the best I had. Him in a clean shirt, suspenders, boots polished. The preacher looked confused, but performed the ceremony. Mrs. Henderson cried. I don't know why. The vows felt like signing a contract. Practical. Necessary. Safe. Walking up the mountain path, behind him afterward, carrying my single bag of belongings. I thought I've made worse bargains. At least this one comes with firewood. I didn't let myself think about the rest, about what marriage meant beyond survival, about the bed we'd share, the life we'd build, the ways we'd learn each other's rhythms, one foot in front of the other. That's how you survive. That's how you climb mountains. The cabin sat in a clearing halfway up the mountain, built into the slope like it had grown there. One room, stone chimney, windows facing east to catch morning light. Sparse, but clean. A man's space practical, unadorned. It's good, I said, because it was true. The craftsmanship was evident in every joint, every corner. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. I built it, he said quietly. Of course he did. That first week, we established our rhythms like dancers, learning steps. I woke before dawn, made coffee, found he was already up feeding chickens I hadn't known he had. We worked in parallel orbits, him chopping wood, me organizing the kitchen. Both of us careful not to collide. The bed was the awkward thing neither of us mentioned. He insisted I take it, said he'd sleep on the floor by the fire. I lasted 3 nights before practical won over pride. It's cold, I said. You can share. I trust you. The truth was more complicated. I trusted him not to force anything. Whether I trusted myself was another question. We slept back to back that first night. Careful not to touch. His breathing was steady, slow. I counted his breaths like I used to count coins. When had I started finding comfort in another person's rhythms? I picked wildflowers from the meadow. On the 5th day, just a handful blue columbine. Indian paintbrush. Stuck them in a jar on the table because the cabin needed color, needed softness. He noticed, but said nothing, just smiled slightly while drinking his coffee. That smile did something to my chest. Made it tight. I felt foolish and defiant in equal measure. I started mending his shirts next. They were worn, but good quality fabric better than I'd expected. I fixed them carefully. Not just functional, but neat, with small decorative stitches on the cuffs. He thanked me quietly. Ran his fingers over the stitching like he was reading something written there. My mother used to do that, he said. The fancy stitches. Where's your mother now? Dead, 10 years. He paused. Yours, dead too, longer. We were both orphans. I realized, both alone before we'd found each other. Maybe that made this easier. Maybe it made it harder. He carved me a second chair without being asked. Set it at the table, across from his. I sat in it that evening and thought about symbols. 1 chair was loneliness. 2 chairs were possibility. The conversations deepened like water, wearing stone gradually. Inevitably. We talked while working, while eating, while watching the fire at night. He told me his father had taught him carpentry, that he'd learned to read from his mother. I told him about James, about the fever, about the silence after. Do you miss him? He asked. I miss not being alone, I said honestly. I don't know if that's the same thing. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. The first snow came in October. We woke to white, covering everything, muffling the world. I made coffee while he built up the fire. We sat at our 2 chairs, drinking in comfortable silence. watching winter arrive. I realized I'd stopped counting days until spring, started counting other things instead. How many times he smiled, how many times I almost smiled back. How many nights we'd slept beside each other, backs slowly turning toward fronts, distance shrinking. When had his footsteps become familiar? When had his silence stopped feeling empty? I caught myself humming while making bread, humming like I had reasons to be happy. That night, lying in our shared bed, closer now, his warmth near, I thought I married him for survival. So why does my heart race when he says my name? I didn't have an answer. Didn't want one. Maybe. Some things were safer left unexamined. I fell ill in late October. Woke up with fever burning through me, my head feeling like it was full of wool and nails. I tried to work through it, made breakfast, started bread, but collapsed while kneading dough. He found me on the floor. For 3 days, he tended me, cool cloths on my forehead. Broth he made somehow, though I didn't know he could cook. He read to me Shakespeare, of all things, from a worn book I hadn't noticed on his shelf. His voice was quiet, steady, turned the words into music. I was delirious for most of it, said things I shouldn't have said, called his name like a prayer, reached for his hand like drowning, whispered, "Don't leave," like a child afraid of the dark. When the fever finally broke, I lay there ashamed, remembering fragments. What had I revealed? What weakness had I shown? He brought me broth, helped me sit up. I couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, "for being trouble." "You weren't trouble." He paused. "I like hearing my name in your voice." Something in my chest cracked open. Not breaking, blooming. Maybe. That scared me worse than the fever. He didn't press, didn't demand anything. Just went back to reading while I recovered. But everything had shifted. We both knew it. That evening, I was strong enough to sit by the fire. We sat in our chairs, the space between us feeling both vast and non-existent. I watched his hands, carpenter's hands, healer's hands, capable, patient. I wondered what they'd feel like against my skin. Then cursed myself for wondering. "Thank you," I said, "for taking care of me. You'd do the same." Would I? He looked at me then. Really looked. "Yes, you would. That's who you are." I hadn't meant to love him. Love was a luxury, a risk, a door to loss. But I was loving him anyway, helpless as spring coming to frozen ground. The realization terrified me more than poverty ever had. His tenderness undid me. I'd survived harsh. I'd survived alone. I didn't know how to survive gentle. I reached for his hand, deliberately, not in fever. He took it, held it like something precious. We sat like that, watching the fire, not speaking. Words would have ruined it. That night, in our bed, he held me for the first time with intention. Not careful, not accidental, just held me. His arms were solid, warm, safe. "I'm terrified," I whispered into the darkness. "So am I," he said, somehow. Knowing he was scared, too, made it bearable. I'd compared him to James once. in my head. James had been summer bright, warm, fast-burning. This was autumn slow, deep, settling in bones. Different didn't mean less. Maybe it meant more. I fell asleep in his arms, his heartbeat steady against my back. For the first time since James died, I didn't dream of being alone. The storm came in November, sudden and vicious. We'd seen the signs, the animals restless, the sky going heavy and green. We prepared fast, securing everything we could. The livestock, I said, watching the first snow start. They'll need shelter. Together, he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. We were a team now. We worked for 3 days straight. The snow came hard, wind howling like something alive and angry. We moved animals to the lean-to, stacked hay, kept water from freezing. I knew livestock as well as he did better. Maybe. My father had kept animals. I'd grown up doing this. He watched me work, then started deferring to my judgment. When the cow looked ready to birth early, he asked, "What do we do?" Not "I'll handle it," not "let me." What do we do? I delivered that calf in the middle of a blizzard, my hands shaking from cold and fear and something like joy. He held the lantern, gave me towels, murmured encouragement. When the calf finally stood on wobbly legs, we looked at each other and laughed, exhausted, triumphant, together. We shared whiskey by the fire that night, passing the bottle between us. My hands were raw. His face was drawn with tiredness. We'd saved everything, lost nothing. We make a good team, he said. We do. When had I become we? When had his battles become mine? The trip to town for supplies came a week later. First time we'd gone together since the wedding. I noticed the stares immediately. The whispers, Mrs. Henderson's daughter Emma, cruel in the way young girls can be said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Poor thing married him desperate. Wonder what he promised her." I turned, looked her straight in the eye. My voice was calm, cold. I married him because I chose him. I'd choose him again every day. Judge if you want. I know what I have. The store went quiet. Emma's face flushed red. I took my purchases and left with my head high, in the wagon heading home. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, "You didn't have to defend me." "Yes, I did." I looked at him. "You're mine." His hands tightened on the reins. When we got home, he helped me down from the wagon and kissed me first. Real kiss. Right there in the snow. Not gentle. Claiming. "You're mine too," he said against my mouth. That night, we made love for the first time with full presence, full honesty, no hesitation, no pretense, just us, finally showing each other everything. Afterward, lying in his arms, I whispered, "I love you." "I know," he said. "I've been waiting for you to know it too." I'd been protecting myself so carefully, building walls, keeping distance. But love wasn't something you could prevent with caution. It just happened. Like weather, like seasons. I'd protect you as fiercely as you'd protect me, I said. That's what this means. I know, he said again. That's why I waited. Until you were ready to fight for us. Their pity had annoyed me. Their judgment had enraged me. How dare they diminish what we'd built, what we were building? I fell asleep thinking, 3 months ago, I was alone, counting coins. Now I'm counting heartbeats. His and mine together. December settled in deep and cold. We'd been married 3 months. I knew his rhythms now the way he stretched in the morning. The particular silence when he was thinking. The sound of his breathing in sleep. I knew him. That was what terrified me. I realized one night, watching him carve by firelight, that I was completely invested. If I lost him now, it would destroy me. The thought struck like lightning sudden, illuminating, burning. I couldn't survive this loss. Not again. Not deeper. He looked up, caught my expression. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. Margaret. My name in his voice. When had that become my favorite sound? I'm fine. I wasn't. The next day, he mentioned casually, I want to show you something soon. Take you somewhere. My stomach dropped. Somewhere. What did that mean? Was he leaving? Did he have secrets? Was this whole thing temporary? The spiral started immediately. I couldn't stop it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched him breathe, steady and deep, and thought about James, how fast he'd died, how little warning I'd had, how much it had hurt. This would hurt worse. I loved this man more than I'd ever loved James deeper, fuller, with a woman's love instead of a girl's. Losing him would break something in me that wouldn't heal. Better to leave before I'm left. Better to choose the leaving than have it chosen for me. The logic was terrible. Backwards. I knew it even as I thought it. But fear doesn't listen to logic. I started packing in the middle of the night. Quiet. My few belongings fit in one bag still. I wrote a note, hand shaking. I can't be what you need. I'm sorry. I stood at the door at dawn, bag in hand, waiting for enough light to see the path. He came downstairs, saw me there. His face didn't show surprise, showed something worse. Understanding. What are you afraid of? He asked quietly. Everything spilled out. I can't lose you. I can't survive it. James died, and it nearly killed me. But I survived because I hadn't loved him like this. I love you too much. It's too dangerous. When you leave, when I leave, he stepped closer. Margaret, I'm not leaving. You said you wanted to show me something. Take me somewhere. You have secrets. I can't. My voice broke. He took my hand. I do have secrets. I've been afraid to tell you. Afraid you'd think differently of me. He paused. But I can't hide anymore. Come with me tomorrow. See what I need to show you. Then decide stay or go. Your choice? You promise you're not leaving? I promise. But I have to show you the truth. All of it. His eyes were steady, serious. I'm scared too. That helped. Knowing he was vulnerable made it bearable somehow. I'd survived loss once by expecting nothing. Now I expected everything. What happened when you hoped and lost again? What happened when you poured yourself in and life took it? All. But what happened if you didn't? What happened if you ran before giving love a chance? His kindness broke me. His patience destroyed me. Why couldn't he be cruel? Cruelty I knew how to survive. This gentle, steady love, I had no defenses against it. I unpacked the bag with shaking hands. I'll come. I'll see. But I'm terrified. So am I, he said. We held each other in the doorway, dawn coming up outside, both of us trembling. Love was the cruelest investment. You poured yourself in, and any moment could take it all away. But maybe love was also the bravest thing, knowing the risk and choosing it anyway. Don't let me run, I whispered. Never. He promised. The morning was cold and clear. He called it a hunting trip. Packed supplies, like we'd be gone all day. I was nervous, my stomach in knots. But I trusted him. That was the thing, despite everything. I trusted him. We hiked through mountain passes I didn't know existed. He knew this mountain like he knew his own hands. Led me through paths that seemed invisible until we were on them. We walked for hours. How much further? I asked. Close. His voice was tight. He was nervous too. The path opened suddenly into a hidden valley. Beautiful green even in December, protected by the mountains around it. And in the center, a house. Not a cabin, a house. Substantial, well-built. 2 stories, stone and wood, with a porch that wrapped around. Beautiful craftsmanship, clearly valuable. I stopped walking. What is this? He didn't answer immediately. Stood beside me, looking at the house like it might bite him. My family's home. He finally said, Mine? I looked at him. I don't understand. He took a breath, started talking. My family had money, land. This house, I grew up here, learning my father's business, expected to run everything. His voice was flat, careful. Got engaged to a woman from town. Proper family. Proper match. Then my parents died fever. Same as your James. He stopped. I waited. I inherited everything. The business, the land, this house. And I discovered something. He turned to me. She didn't love me. She loved the money. When I suggested we might live simpler, she laughed. When I insisted, she left. My chest hurt. I gave it all up 5 years ago, walked away, lived in the cabin, worked with my hands, wanted to find someone who'd love me for who I was, not what I had. He looked terrified now. I was going to tell you. I've been trying to tell you. But I was afraid. What if the money changed things? What if you looked at me different? I walked away from him. Walked toward the house, my mind spinning. He'd tested me, deceived me, married me while hiding this enormous truth. I walked through the house. Beautiful rooms, furniture covered in sheets, everything preserved perfectly. A piano in the parlor, a library with more books than I'd ever seen, a kitchen twice the size of the cabin. I sat down in the parlor on a sheet-covered chair and thought, 3 months? 3 months, I'd loved him, thinking we had nothing. I'd picked wildflowers for a cabin I thought was all we'd ever have. I'd mended his shirts carefully, lovingly, believing we were both poor. I'd given him everything, my heart, my body, my future for a man I thought had nothing but his hands and his kindness. He'd watched me do all that. Had I passed his test? Was that what this was? But then I thought he'd given me the same thing. He'd lived poor, worked hard, shown me his real self without the trappings of wealth. He'd been vulnerable too, in his way, risking that I'd love him for himself. Not for this. He found me in the parlor, stood in the doorway, waiting. "You tested me," I said. "I tested myself," he corrected quietly. Could I be loved for who I was? Not what I had. You weren't the test. I stood up, walked to him. "I picked wildflowers for that cabin. I know. I mended your shirts with fancy stitches you didn't need. I know. I gave you everything when I thought you had nothing." My voice broke. You already had my answer. Why hide this? Because I was afraid. Because everyone I'd ever known wanted the house, the money, the status. I wanted someone who'd choose me in the cabin. Then I'd really know it was real. I understood that. God help me, I understood. "I chose you in that cabin," I said. "I choose you here. But we keep both homes." He looked confused. "Both. The cabin reminds us what matters. This house..." I looked around. This house is possibility, space to grow, resources to help others. But we don't forget where we started. We'd both been hiding. Me behind survival and walls, him behind chosen poverty, both of us terrified of being loved falsely. The mansion was impressive. The cabin was honest. I wanted both the truth of who we'd been, the possibility of who we could become. He pulled me close. "I thought you'd be angry." "I am angry. I'm also understanding." I looked up at him. "You trusted me with your whole truth. That's worth more than any house." "I love you," he said. "I loved you when you set wildflowers on our table. I loved you when you defended me to the town. I love you now. Take me home," I said. "To the cabin. Tomorrow we'll talk about this place. Tonight. I need to remember what's real." We walked back through the mountain passes, hand in hand. The cabin looked small and perfect when we arrived. I made coffee. We sat in our 2 chairs. Everything felt right again. "We'll figure this out," I said. "Together, together." He agreed. Some people get tested by fire. We'd been tested by poverty and wealth both. And somehow, we'd passed. That was 5 years ago. We live between both homes now. Summers in the cabin, staying grounded, remembering what matters. Keeping our hands rough and our hearts humble. Winters in the valley house, warmth and space. Room for the family we've built. Our daughter, Sarah, is 3. She runs between both homes like a wild thing, learning to read in the library, learning to milk goats at the cabin. When she asks why we have 2 houses, I tell her, one for remembering who we are, one for becoming who we'll be. She accepts this the way children accept everything with simple faith. We've used the resources quietly, helped rebuild the Hendersons' barn after a fire, funded the schoolteacher's salary when the town couldn't. Bought supplies for families struggling through hard winters, not charity partnership. The way he'd offered me partnership that first time, I teach reading now to anyone who wants to learn. He builds furniture, sells it for fair prices, teaches carpentry to young men who need a trade. We work. We both still work. The money didn't change that, just expanded what we could do. Sometimes I wake up in the Valley house and panic for a moment. Where am I? Then I feel his warmth beside me. Hear Sarah singing in her room, and remember, I'm home. Both places are home. Last April, the anniversary of James's death, I visited his grave. I'd avoided it for years, unable to face it. But I went this time, with my husband beside me, holding Sarah's hand. I planted flowers on James's grave. Wildflowers, the kind I used to pick for our cabin. Both loves were real, I told James silently. Both taught me something. But only one showed me that partnership means revealing everything, even the parts you've hidden from the world. My husband squeezed my hand. Understood without words. We walked back to the cabin. We'd stayed there the night before. Sarah ran ahead, chasing butterflies. My husband and I walked slow, holding hands, comfortable in silence. Do you regret it? He asked. That I waited to tell you. Sometimes, I admitted. Then I remember I got to choose you purely. No doubts. No wondering if I loved you or your money. That gift was worth the deception. It wasn't deception. It was protection. For both of us. I said. I'd thought wealth corrupted. It doesn't. Fear corrupts. We'd both been afraid of being loved falsely. Truth cured us. Honesty, finally given, set us both free. The real treasure wasn't the house he showed me. It was learning I deserved both poverty and plenty, as long as love was honest. That I could survive loss and still risk love again. That partnership meant revealing your whole self, the scared parts, the wealthy parts, the parts you've protected from everyone. Standing in the cabin doorway that evening, Valley house visible in the distance. 2 plates on the table. Wildflowers in a jar, his hand in mine, I thought about the woman I'd been. The widow counting coins. Rationing hope. Building walls against loss. She'd be proud of me. I think she'd be so proud I chose to hope anyway. Some nights, I still wake up counting coins in my head. Old habits die hard. Then I feel his warmth beside me. Hear our daughter breathing in her loft bed. And I count different things now. Blessings, not scarcity. Love given and returned. Moments of pure joy. The poor widow I was would hardly recognize the woman I became. But she'd understand the choice I made to risk everything for the chance at something real. To trust, despite terror. To hope, despite history. I'd spent so long protecting my heart. I'd forgotten hearts were meant to be used. Worn down by love. Broken and healed. Used up in service of living fully. Sarah calls from the loft. Mama, tell me the story. Which story? I ask, though I know. The one about how you and Papa fell in love. I look at my husband. He smiles. Once upon a time. I begin. There was a woman who'd forgotten how to hope, and a man who'd forgotten how to trust. They found each other in the middle of winter, and taught each other how to be brave again. Did they live happily ever after? Sarah asks. They lived. I say, fully, honestly, together. That's better than happy ever after. My husband's hand finds mine in the darkness. That's the truth, I think. Not fairy tale, not rescue. Just two people choosing each other every day. Building a life from honesty and work and love that survived testing, that's enough. More than enough. That's everything